Hello, you're tuning in to Short Rest, and today we're going to be talking about and ranking the 5 new spells of Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos. With Strixhaven, we got a total of 5 new spells, which is really exciting. New spells can really add a lot to the game. I'm super happy to see these additional spells in this book, as it helps achieve part of what I think they were trying to accomplish with the Strixhaven Unearthed Arcana, with the subclasses shared between parent caster classes. For more context about that, you can click the card up above to see an in-depth analysis of the features presented there. But adding these spells here, one for each of the respective Strixhaven colleges, really evokes a shared curriculum and a common knowledge between college members. However, it is a bit disappointing to see that there are only 5 spells here. It would be nice to have at least 2 or maybe even 3 from each college to help further that idea, especially since these are very early in level progression. It does feel a bit unfinished. Now on to the spells here. First we have Silvery Barbs, which is a first level enchantment spell available to the Bard, Sorcerer, and Wizard. Casting time is 1 reaction, which you can take when a creature you can see within 60 feet of you succeeds on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. The range is 60 feet and the duration is instantaneous. The spell reads, you magically distract the triggering creature and turn its momentary uncertainty into encouragement for another creature. The triggering creature must re-roll the d20 and use the lower roll. You can then choose a different creature you can see within range. You can choose yourself. The chosen creature has advantage on the next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw it makes within 1 minute. A creature can be empowered by only 1 use of this spell at a time. We are starting out incredibly strong with this spell. First off, being able to decide to cast this spell after you know the attack, ability check, or saving throw succeeds is critical. This helps ensure that this spell actually does something. Causing disadvantage is one thing, but causing disadvantage, potentially changing a guaranteed success into a failure, is another, and it is much more powerful. For context, if an enemy uses True Strike to get themselves advantage and ensure a critical spell or attack hits, you can use Silvery Barbs to null the advantage that they had and cause them to roll again, which will likely be lower and cause a miss. That in of itself is pretty powerful for a first level spell, but it could still whiff and feel kind of bad. But you also get to hand out an advantage yourself, which means with 1 first level spell slot and 1 reaction, you can cause a creature to potentially miss an attack that they would have hit, and you can ensure a hit on an attack that might have missed. The same is true for ability checks and saving throws. Let's imagine the big bad gets a lucky natural 20 and is about to crit you. Nah. They have to roll again, and he might miss. Oh, and I get to give my rogue friend advantage on their next attack, enabling a sneak attack. This spell is really good, and I give it a 5 out of 5. Next up, we have Borrowed Knowledge, which is a 2nd level divination spell with a casting time of 1 action. The range is self, the duration is 1 hour, and the components required are verbal, somatic, and material. Specifically, a book worth at least 25 GP. The spell reads, you draw on knowledge from spirits of the past. Choose 1 skill in which you lack proficiency. For the spell's duration, you have proficiency in the chosen skill. The spell ends early if you cast it again. This spell is available to Bard, Cleric, Warlock, and Wizard. This spell reminds me a lot of Enhance Ability, but unlike Enhance Ability, this spell is available to Warlocks and Wizards, which is a massive boon to those classes. Wizards, Warlocks, and Clerics don't have a large sum of proficiencies, so being able to grant one for a short time can really help out in exploration. One situation that immediately comes to mind is athletics checks. Most Warlocks and Wizards tend to dump strength, making climbing cliffs a real hassle. With this spell, you can make those checks a lot less painful. Something else that the spell has going for it is that it doesn't require concentration, whereas Enhance Ability does. Not needing to concentrate is pretty useful, as clerics will be able to use guidance and this spell at the same time, granting proficiency and a d4 on their next check, which could be really helpful. One class that gets this spell that is a bit questionable to me is Bards. While this spell feels sufficiently Bard-like, I would take Enhance Ability over it any day. Enhance Ability grants advantage on checks, meaning that your Jack of all trades feature isn't rendered utterly useless. Enhance Ability also has the range of touch rather than self, which means you can hand it out to your allies. Something to also keep in mind is that this spell isn't the best for Warlocks. As a Warlock, you have limited spells known, and this spell doesn't scale at all. Even though your Warlock spell level increases, you don't get any additional benefit over a Wizard casting it at 2nd level. Overall, I give Borrow Knowledge a 4 out of 5 for Wizards and Clerics, and a 2 out of 5 for Bards and Warlocks. Our next spell is called Kinetic Jaunt. Kinetic Jaunt is a 2nd level transmutation spell that has a casting time of 1 bonus action and a range of self. The only component is somatic, and the duration is concentration up to 1 minute. The spell reads, you magically empower your movement with dance-like steps, giving yourself the following benefits for the duration. Your walking speed increases by 10 feet, you don't provoke opportunity attacks, and you can move through the space of another creature, and it doesn't count as difficult terrain. If you end your turn in another creature's space, you are shunted to the last unoccupied space you occupied, and you take 1d8 force damage. This spell is available to Artificers, Bards, Wizards, and Sorcerers. So immediately this reminds me of the mobile feat, which grants similar benefits. Mobile is one of my all-time favorite feats, as it is so freeing in combat. This spell granting the main benefits of mobile while adding the ability to move through creature spaces is really great. The main application I can think of is if you become surrounded in combat and need to make a hasty getaway. Expeditious Retreat may grant you the ability to cover more ground, but this definitely defends you from being destroyed by opportunity attacks and gives you a little speed boost to boot. I'm glad that Bards, Wizards, and Sorcerers all get access to this spell, as typically they can be pretty squishy, and this is a great get-out-of-jail-free card if you have overextended into the front lines. The casting time of 1 bonus action is really what makes this spell so special, as you still have your action to cast a cantrip or heal a dying party member. Overall, I give this spell a 4 out of 5. Our next spell is called Vortex Warp. It is a 2nd level conjuration spell available to Artificers, Wizards, and Sorcerers. It has the casting time of 1 action, a range of 90 feet, and requires only verbal and somatic components. The spell reads, you magically twist space around another creature you can see within range. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. The target can choose to fail. Or the target is teleported to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within range. The chosen space must be on a surface or in a liquid that can support the target without the target having to squeeze. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 3rd level or higher, the range of the spell increases by 30 feet for each spell level above 2nd. Okay, so this spell is pretty neat. I really like the design present here. First off, including the reminder text that the target can choose to fail is a signpost that this spell has the flexibility of being able to both help an ally or hurt an enemy, which I really like. Battlefield maneuverability and control is one of the things that can help D&D combat from being too monotonous, and this spell really delivers on that front. Sometimes with battlefield control spells, you are looking at spells like Spike Growth and realize that you will be hurting your allies just as much as the enemies you are trying to inhibit. But with this spell, you have greater control. This spell evokes so much fun and creativity that I love to see in D&D, and the ceiling is absolutely high. Does your paladin ally have some troubles with flying enemies? No problem, teleport the flying creature directly in front of your paladin friend to get off a juicy smite. Maybe there's an archer in the back lines slinging arrows and really hampering the party from their perch. Well, now they have to deal with you and your barbarian up close and personal. Perhaps there's an arrow trap triggered by a pressure plate in the hallway leading up to this room. As long as you can see it, and it is within 90 feet of you, you can plop the enemy healer right onto that bad boy. Not to mention allies. You can teleport your wizard party member out of the fray, or you could get your slow-moving dwarf fighter right into the line of battle. I love spells that encourage teamwork and come with flexibility. The only and main downside to this spell is it does nothing without the environment and combat scenario to support it. I don't think those will be too hard to find, but I think it is enough from keeping this spell from being a 5 out of 5. Therefore, I will give it a 4. Our 5th and last spell is called Wither and Bloom, which is a 2nd level necromancy spell available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. It has the casting time of 1 action and a range of 60 feet. It requires verbal, somatic, and material components, though there is no GP cost. The spell reads, you invoke both death and life upon a 10-foot radius sphere centered on a point within range. Each creature of your choice in that area must make a Constitution saving throw, taking 2d6 necrotic damage on a fail-saved, or half as much on a successful one. Non-magical vegetation in that area withers. In addition, one creature of your choice in that area can spend and roll one of its unspent hit dice and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your spellcasting ability modifier. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 3rd level or higher, the damage increases by 1d6 for each spell slot above 2nd. I think this spell is actually pretty neat. It has a couple of built-in mechanics that ensure that it is really useful and interesting. First, you get to choose which creatures in the area that are affected by the damage of the spell. With area effect spells such as this, that is actually really important, as you don't have to be constantly looking for a part of the battlefield that is free from your allies. Additionally, the ability to allow one of your allies to spend a hit die and regain hit points equal to the roll plus your spellcasting ability modifier is really cool. Using hit die outside of resting is wonderful design space, and I really hope we see more abilities and spells that interact with that. I also really enjoy that you can deal damage and do a bit of pseudo healing at the same time here. The only thing you give up in that case is a bit of efficiency for both. 2d6 or half on a successful save is not a lot of damage, and to make matters worse, if you fight a lot of undead in your campaign, this spell really suffers because it deals necrotic damage. However, being able to both heal and harm, potentially harming multiple enemies, is a fairly respectable use of your 2nd level spell slots. Furthermore, if you can make sure that you have at least 3 enemies in the radius, this is kind of a save-based Scorching Ray with an added benefit. Overall, I give this spell a 3 out of 5. It does a lot and it plays in a fun design space, but it doesn't excel in any one category. Overall, I really enjoy the spells added to the game, and I don't think any of them are game-breaking by any means. I really liked the flexible subclasses in the Unearthed Arcana conceptually, but I think the original execution was flawed. I am happy to see these evocative spells, in addition to the feats and backgrounds taking that place. The standout spells for me are Silvery Barbs and Vortex Warp. Silvery Barbs is wonderfully reactionary and does a lot to ensure that it doesn't get wasted. Meanwhile, Vortex Warp evokes such wonderful creativity that I can't wait to try out. Forceful teleportation sounds really fun, and I'm glad that they didn't allow us to just teleport an enemy into mid-air so that they plummet to the ground. To get the most out of it, you really need to be creative, and I really enjoy that. If you got this far in the video, I just wanted to say a super big thank you. You have already done so much to help the channel. If you enjoyed it or gained any value from it, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on your next short rest. I wanted to give a super big shout out to our patrons. If you want your name immortalized at the end of our videos, you can support Short Rest on Patreon at the link down below. Our patrons of local hero tier or above are Painted Sky and Robert Allen Klaus III. Thank you guys so much.